Hi guys, welcome to this session on graphs and charts. First example we're going to look at is a column chart. This is a column chart, as you can see on the screen. To move this around, first of all I need to click on the chart. I get these small circles around the edge, and then that allows me to move the chart by dragging wherever I want the chart to be. If I move my mouse to these circles, this allows me to resize the chart, make it smaller or longer or wider, whichever way I want to go. Now to delete this chart, I need to just be clicking on the edge of the chart where these circles are, and then I can press delete on the keyboard and the chart will disappear. If I just undo that, if I click onto an element of the chart and press delete, I just delete that element. So I could end up doing this before I actually delete the whole chart. The last one will be the whole chart. So when you delete a chart, if I bring that all back, make sure you're on the edge. The chart area is a part of the chart that you require. Make sure you're there, and then when you press delete, the whole thing will disappear. So what we're going to do now is we're going to recreate a graph similar to that one there, and we start off by highlighting the data. So I'm starting in cell A2, and I'm going to highlight across the data that I want for my chart, which in this case is A2 to E5, A2 to E5. I don't want the total column or the total rows in this particular chart, but that's what I want. And then I go insert. Now the charts are in the middle of the ribbon. You have recommended charts, but I'm going to do these three charts for this session. So I'm going to do a basic column chart, then a line chart, then a pie chart. When I do the line chart, I'm also going to look at combination charts as well, which is an icon you have there. But first of all, this one, I'm clicking on the options. I do want this first option, but just to make sure that you're aware, you cannot just pick one of these styles because you think they look nice, because all of these are looking at data in a slightly different way. So for example, that option would be a stacked column, which would be adding the categories football, rugby and cricket on top of each other and giving you that sort of chart. I want this clustered column chart, which is comparing each category by month. So I just click that and the chart appears on the screen. And as I've already explained, to move the chart, you sit there and just move it into position, and I do want to make this a little bit longer, like that. Now, very quickly, we've got a very simple chart on the screen, which is going to be looking at this data in the blue cells. So if I change the figure for January in football, and when I click away, that immediately reacts. The chart picks that up. So once you've done the chart, you don't need to redo it unless it's not correct. All it is doing is looking at the data. If the data changes, the chart reflects that change. Now to format this chart, I want to do a few things. So chart title, I'm just going to call this sports expenditure. Now when you start typing this, it looks as though nothing's happening. Even though it's going up there, nothing seems to be happening in this box, which is slightly off-putting. But when you press enter, whatever you've typed will appear in that box. Now down the right hand side of this chart, you have these small elements which I want to quickly look at. I'm going to click on the plus, which gives me options, which I'm not going to click on, but I'm just going to hover over so you can see what will appear when I do that. These are all options that you can have on your chart if you require. Now I don't want any of those, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. Next one down is a little chart style paintbrush. Click on that and it gives me a scrolling list of different options. I do like this black one, so I'm going to click on it. Now just as an aside, I could have done the same thing from the design tab at the top. There she blows. The next one down is a filter, which gives you the option to knock off categories or series. So if I didn't want to look at cricket, for example, if I click the tick there, take that off and apply, I'm now not looking at cricket. Put the tick back on, apply, and then I am now looking at cricket again. Very, very useful filters. I'm just going to leave that as it is. One of the options from the plus was to add data labels. Now, because I've just clicked on one of these elements, with these bars, so if I click on the green one, it would be putting the data labels above the green. I can also do this by right clicking on any bar. So I've right clicked on the red bar, and now I'm going to say add data labels, and there you go. Whether you want data labels on every column, it's up to you. That would be quicker to just select the graph, the whole graph, and then go through this option, data labels, and it would put them on. So what I would need to do is take that off and then put that back on, so it's now on for all of the columns, and I am going to leave that on for all of the columns. Now I've decided I don't like this black, so I'm going to change it. Now I am going to teach you that to double click on elements of a chart is probably the quickest way to get to the right part. You have the options at the top on the format, but if you're not in the right area, you'll probably format the wrong area. So I want to format the back of this chart, the chart area, so I'm just going to double click there, and when I do that I get the format chart area pane popping out of the right hand side. And what I want to quickly look at are the fill options. So first one is no fill. That makes the chart see-through. Now obviously my font is white, so I can't see the font color, so I could go and put the font back to black and I can see it, which is okay, but I would have to do that if I was going to leave it as it is, but I'm not. Next one down, solid fill. This is where I can change the colors myself. A bit green, it's a bit loud. Next one down is gradient fill. This is how this one works. So basically you've got gradient stops. So I'm just going to pull these two off and start again. So if I click a gradient stop there and change the color to something bright like red, and then I do another gradient stop, green, and then another one, yellow, and then another one, blue maybe, you end up having a very dynamic, very pretty looking chart. Next one down from that is picture or texture fill. It defaults to texture, which have been around for a long time. These are the textures. As I say to my class quite often, these are pre-Roman, some of these. I'm going to insert a picture from my computer, so I'm going to click on File, and I've got some pictures saved. Find them under Photos, and then Photos Waterloo, and I'll have a picture of the Battle of Waterloo. Now when I've inserted that picture, it's made this graph slightly cluttered, so I can fade that picture out slightly by using this transparency option, make it more like a watermark, like so. Now pattern fill is not something that I would choose for a background of a graph. These features are available for shapes that you bring, so sometimes you might want to do this with shapes or filling in cells, but not for a graph, I don't think. So that is how you format a basic chart. Now I'll just need to undo that because I've clicked on one of those options which I didn't want to do. So that's a column chart. Now the next one along is a line chart. Here we have a line chart, which I'm going to click on the edge like I've said before and delete that one off. Now this particular one I need to highlight from the yellow cell to the yellow cell. I'm going back up to insert again, and then I'm on the second item down, which is a line chart, and again you can't just pick any one that you fancy the look of. Just make sure it is the right type, and the one I want for this one is going to be line with markers, and that one looks very similar, but that again is adding up the two categories. I want them to be compared, so I'm picking this one. Now my graph is quite small, so I'm just going to move that over to the left, extend the graph with a small circle, and maybe I can format that as well as I did before. Let's go for the black. Right, now I'm looking at this graph and I don't like it, so I've decided I want to change this to be what's called a combination graph. So instead of 2 lines, I want 1 line and 1 column. Now, if I click on the blue line, that is the actual figures. The red line is the target figures. So I want the blue to be represented as a column. Now to do that, I need to go up to the top and click on Change Chart Type. So actual is down as a line. I want to change that to a column. And there you go, you get the column. I click OK to that. And we get this style, which I don't really like. But let's see if I can pick a different one. That's a better one. Okay, so when you look at this graph, immediately you can see that you didn't make your target on most months of the year, but you did make your target in June, and you broke through your target in August. And that's a line graph with a combination option. Now, if you wanted a combination graph from the start, that is an option when you create graphs. You can actually select combination. You don't have to go through that process. You have a combination option on the ribbon, and then you select the criteria you want. Now the next chart we're going to look at is a pie chart. Now I have 2 pie charts, male and female, and this chart on the right, which is called the donut chart, which compares them both. It's basically 2 pie charts, one inside the other. Now my thought process on charts is that they should display data in a simple, easy to understand way, and if it does not, you should change it. And in my view, that does not display the data in a simple way, so I'm going to delete that one, and we're not going to do that one. We're going to concentrate on these 2, but first of all, let's delete them both, and we can start from scratch. So to get the men, you need to highlight from the blank cell, so you pick up the label, all of the yellow area. You go in Insert, and this time we're picking the third one of these 3 that we're looking at, which is pie. I want a 3D pie, and there we go, 3D pie. Now I want to format this slightly because I don't want these labels down the bottom, this legend, and delete that because I want the labels on the pie itself. So I'm going to right click, add data labels. Now let's put the numbers on there. I don't want the numbers on there, so I'm going to right click, format data labels. Now when I do that, the pane on the right changes. I want to show percentage and category name, and I don't want to show the value anymore, so I'll take that off. If you take value off first, you lose everything, so it's always wise to put percentage on and then take value off. Now I also want to pull out this little green cheese to focus on that. When I've clicked on it, all of these other cheeses are clicked. If I click it again, it isolates the green cheese, which I've just missed, isolates the green cheese, and then I can pull that out like so. I also want to make this a specific size, so I'm going to click on the Format tab, and let's make it 7 by 7, 7 by 7, and then I can move that over there, like so. And to get the women, we have to do this. We highlight from the blank cell, down the dates, hold the Control key down, and click on the word female, and highlight the figures for female. Then you do the same process, insert pie, 3D pie. Don't want the labels at the bottom, I want them on the pie itself, so right click, add data labels. Don't want the numbers, so right click, format data labels. When you right click to format data labels, make sure that you do not take the value off. I'll just do it so you can see. If I take it off before I click percent, you just lose the label, so you have to start again. So right click, add data labels, right click, format data labels, percentage on, then you can take the value off, category name. And I'm going to pull out the green cheese, so I'm clicking on the green cheese. All of the cheeses are selected, but if I click it again, I should isolate the green cheese, and I can slide that out. Don't pull it out too far because the rest of the graph shrinks. And last but not least, I'm clicking off the cheese onto the chart area in the back, and then I'm going format, and I'm putting this to 7 by 7 as I did with the men, so we've got the same size. Then I can move that next to that one, and that's two quick examples of a pie chart. Now on exercise 1, this exercise, I'll just get rid of these text boxes and I can just explain it, these comment boxes. I can explain it myself. So in this particular one, we want a column graph showing men, women and children with the figures above the men only. So you highlight from the blank cell so you can get the labels. Over the data, you go insert, you want a column chart, 2D column, move that over. It did ask us to format that. I'm going to go for black, call it past exam, and the figures over the men, I need to right click on one of the blue columns and add data labels, and that puts the figures over the men, and that is that one complete. This one on the right is a pie chart. Highlight the data, insert pie, 3D pie, move it across. Don't want the labels at the bottom. I want to right click on the pie, add data labels, right click on the pie, format data labels, tick percentage, value off, category name on. In this example, I want to pull out the smallest cheese or segment, so click on the purple one, click it again so it's isolated, and then slide out slowly like so. If I want to format the background, I can do so. However, I just need to get rid of that legend at the bottom, and then chart title, household spend. What we're going to look at in this module is how to create some dynamic graphs. So this first one is using the SumIf function and the date function. So first of all, I've got some sales figures across the top, and then I've got 6 months worth of sales figures in row 4 and 5, and this is how it works. If I type a date in this cell, so I'm going to type Feb 20, when I press enter, all the dates will look back for 6 months from that February date, and the graph will pick that up. So basically the graph, first of all, is just looking at that data there. So if I select the data, you can see what the graph is looking at. That is just a straightforward graph. Come out of that. So you just select the graph and select the data, and then click on chart and pick the type that you want. That's all that is. Now what triggers it is this. So in this cell, so I'm in cell F4, there is the date function, which is basically looking at G4, where I've typed February 2020, and pulling back 1 month from that, so it's saying January 2020. And if I click into the formula at the top and click on FX, you can see how that one is working. So the year part of that formula is going to return 2020. The month on G4 is the first month, and the day is the first day. So you've got a -1 on the month, so that's why it's coming up with the answer 1, the first month, because it's -1 from the second month, which was February. That is what that function does. I'll just click OK to that. You can't just type equals G4 -1, because it doesn't work. It just comes back with, even though the date comes back correct, it doesn't give you a figure. The SumIf function doesn't work. So I'm just going to undo that. So I get the date function in there, and then all the way back it's doing exactly the same, just pulling 1 month off. Now the SumIf function is what drives this. If I click into this cell, you can see the SumIf function up there. Now let's see what I've called these rows. So months, if I highlight row 1 is called months, row 2 is called sales. So the SumIf function looks along the months. When it finds what is in cell B4, so at the minute that is September 19, it brings back the sales figures for September 19, which in this case is that one. If I just colour that one yellow, yellow, yellow. So that's where it's bringing that figure from. Remember, this is the dynamic part, so this date will change. When the date changes, the SumIf function will bring back the relevant figure. So I use this on my own accounts. I have it going back 12 months, and basically I can type a date on my dashboard, any date, and over the last 12 years that I've had the accounts in this particular Excel file, and it will show me back on 30 different charts looking at different data, the information for 12 months. It took me 10 years of teaching that though before I actually did it myself, but it's a great little feature. That's the first one. The next one is using the offset function. So if I just click on this sheet, explain the offset function. So first of all, offset by itself, offset A2, which is that one, by 3 rows. So you've got rows and columns by 3 rows, and it comes back with the number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The count A function is basically counting down the column A for any text or any item, not just text, anything. So it won't count blank cells. So there's 12 cells there, and it's coming back with 12. And then the mixed one is looking at A2, counting all the cells, which is 12, and then doing minus 12, and it's coming back with a 1. So that's the count A function. And in fact, I should have a count A on there. Comes back with a 1. That only works because these are numbers, so count A would pick up any if there was text in there as well, whereas the count function on its own does not. So that's that. And now how does that work on a graph? So if I go on to the next one, this is a gas and electric spend for myself. I like to look at last April 2019 against this April, so it's a 13-month graph if you like, but I don't keep adding things onto it. I've got the data on this sheet, and basically I only want it to look at the last 13 months worth of data, not all of this stuff all the way back there to when I started doing this 2012, recording my gas and electric, just the last 13. Now how do I do that? I use the offset function. So if I go back to this graph and then pull that down a little bit, pull that down a little bit so you can see the formulas. So the first one is looking at gas and electric data A1. So gas and electric data A1 at the top there. If I go back, it's then counting count A, gas and electric data, the whole of column A, and then it's doing a minus 13 on it. And then the next one down is doing a minus 12, and so on, minus 11, all the way down to the last one, which says minus 1, which is the last figure that was entered there. Now, if I just pull this back up, so that would sit nice and neatly like that. And let's enter some money for some data for May 2669. I'll do the 1st of May 20, and then this one is going to tell me how many units I've used. 6 units, so that won't be much, so I'll put £15. And then how many days is that? That's not a full month. What is a unit spend? And then do electric, the same sort of thing. I'll type 98111, and how many units have I used? 192, so that's more than that, so I'll put £45 in there. And then it gives me a total at the end, and I'll just pull this down. And then what should happen now, if this has worked correctly, I should have that data on my graph. So I have a total of £60, 15 and 45 against last May, which was more than that. Well, it was a similar sort of price actually, 61. But obviously gas and electric is slightly different. My gas price is higher, and to be fair, I didn't really think too much about that, but that is quite a low price for gas. Probably be a bit higher than that. But that's just using the offset function, which was this one, and the count A function, which is that one, and then you get this sort of feature, as opposed to constantly adding on columns and creating a graph that's huge and then pointless, because lots of the data is irrelevant. So that's a quick look at 2 dynamic graphs that you can do in Excel. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next little video. So thank you for your time. See you soon. In this module, I want to have a look at how you can create a dynamic chart using the switch function and the filter function. So across the top, I've got some little buttons which I can click on, and as I do that, you can see that the chart changes to reflect the data from whatever is selected. Now I'll also go through how to create these radial buttons and how they're linked to this yellow cell F1. So first of all, there is the formula that's been used, but let's have a look at these 2 functions, filter and switch, individually. So the filter function basically works like so. So equals filter, and then you have an array. Now I've called this data, I've highlighted this area and called it data. So if I type data in there, that's selected, you can see it on the screen. Now I want to filter by a column in that data. So let's say I want to filter by region. So I've called that column region. So I can type region, if region equals, and then I can select whatever region I want. So if I want the north, I just put north in quotes like so. If region equals north, close the bracket, and then click the tick, and it'll just drop in anything out of this list that's the north. Now obviously I can have that looking at a cell. Instead of looking at typing north, I could have it looking at a cell and then have a drop down list there for each of the regions. Now the switch function, if I look at switch, which is what's happening up here, the switch bit, if I type equals switch, what I want to do is look at F1, which is a yellow cell. So F1, so if F1, and then if it says 1, which it does at the minute, I want this to say north, switch to north, comma. If it says 2, comma, I want to switch to south. I'll just do those first 2, and then you can see how that works. Close the bracket, click the tick. So it says north, and if I tick south, it'll say south because there's a number 2 there. So that's basically how I've done this. Now to get the graph and everything like it is and do it all together, what I need to do is just quickly delete this graph, and then I can recreate it. So I'll get rid of that. I'll get rid of this function, and I'll just leave that bit there. Now these little buttons are from the developer tab, and you get them from inserting form controls, this little option button there. So if I sort of right click on these, I can delete them, right click, delete, right click, delete, right click, delete, and then I could just replace them by inserting from the developer tab. Now if you haven't got the developer tab, you need to go to file, options, and customize ribbon, and tick the developer tab on, which I already have. Okay, so then you should get this option. You draw your little circle, comes up with option. Now if you get yourself, make it a little bit bigger so you can see the text, you can just get in there and delete this text off. You don't really need that for this example, and then click away, and then you can click it on and off. Now at the moment it is not connected to anything, so I just need to make this a bit smaller, and then I'll need to format this. So I'll just position it underneath north, and if I right click on it, I can format control, and you've got a cell link there. So the cell link in this example is going to be F1. Now click OK, click away, and then it's on at the moment, but if I copy that and just push it into the next one, and then move that into position like so, and then paste it into the next one and the next one, so you don't have to draw it again. You just need to position them, and to move them, like I clicked on it there, you need to right click on it to move it into position. So now when I click on these, you can see the numbers changing from 1 to 4. So that's what I want, the 4 options. So now to do the filter function and the switch function, which is going to be looking at that number, you just get yourself where you want the data to go. So it's going to be equals filter, open the bracket on the filter. So the table array is still called data, which is that table on the left there, and I want to look at the region, so I've called that column region. You can see it highlighted in red or pink, whatever color that is. Now I'm going to equal, so before, down below, I typed leads, but now I'm going to use the switch function, and that's going to look at the numbers at the top in cell F1. So switch F1, if it says 1, comma, to north, comma, if it says 2, comma, it wants to be south, close quotes, comma, if it says 3, comma, it wants to be east, and if it says 4, comma, it wants to be west, close quotes, close bracket, close the filter bracket. So at the moment, let's just check that. You might miss out some quotes. Let's just tick that, and then it drops it in for the north because it is north, and then south, then east, then west. So that is working okay. So now to do the graph, it's highlight the data, insert a bar chart like so, position that wherever you want it. Just don't need a title for this, and I don't want the fill there, so I'm just going to double click on the plot area and put fill to no fill and border to no border, no line, and then that's like a see-through. Now when I click on these other options, you can see that this is now going upside down. So I've clicked on this list, so there's a blank at the top. I don't want that blank at the top. I want that to go like so. I don't need this either. So now when I click on these, you just get the line at the top. If I click off the graph, you don't need to see that at all. Just get the line at the top like that. Now if you didn't want north, you could have just done it differently. You could have done city, you could have done sold, because I've called these, that's called sold, that's called city. So you, whatever you want to look at filter wise, you can select it. But obviously this has got the target, the red is the target and the blue is the actual sold. I mean, if you want, you can add data labels, and then if you format data labels, I should have done that on them all actually, format data labels, category name like so, and then if you didn't want the value on there, you can just go north leads, whatever you want to put in there, you can show on there. Series names, no, I don't want the series names. But that's basically how you use this filter function with the switch function on these little option buttons, which then gives you a quick look and a quick changeover on this graph, so you can select whichever one you want. So that's all I want to talk about in this little session. So hopefully that's been of use to you, and thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.